everyone for joining us today. Thank you to all the panelists, all the speakers, the supporters. I truly appreciate everyone, and I'm grateful for everyone saying yes to this initiative. Without you all, this event would not have been possible. So at this point, I would hand it over to Ohita, who will be taking over from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David Ojainka, who is the convener of this event, as well as the founder of Fresh Start Hub. For those of you who don't know, Fresh Start Hub is an online platform strategically created for newcomers, helping them navigate the Canadian system and succeed in their careers. Fresh Start Hub provides several resources, such as workshops, podcasts, and eventually mentorship programs. Like David has said, my name is Ohita Oduthamas, and I will be the host and moderator for this event this morning. Before we begin, a few housekeeping rules. Each and every one of you would be on mute until the end, but if you do have any questions during the speaking sessions or panelist discussions, please feel free to use the chat box, and I will monitor your questions and ask the panelists during the discussions. Now to the order of today. We do know for a fact that with the coronavirus pandemic, everything has changed. The way we work, the way we interact with one another, and there's no better time than now to equip ourselves with necessary resources and tools to navigate our careers. So today we have a fantastic lineup of panelists and speakers tailored just for this audience. Without further ado, we'll go into the speaking session. So our first speaker is a HR professional who has had vast experience. She has worked on multi-dollar recruitment and optimization projects. Her passion for HR has even led her to start her own company called Culture Shift HR, where she helps organizations hire the top talent and also build an inclusive environment. Please join me as we welcome Alicia M. Campbell. Over to you, Alicia.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you so much everybody for having me here today. So with that, we are going to be talking about getting that job, resumes and interviewing 101. So just a quick agenda. We're going to talk about the resume because it all starts with our resumes. We're then going to understand the methodology of interview and how to prep. We're going to talk about the different levels of interviewing, so the phone interview, video interview, and panel interview, and then closing the job, so managing the process of the offer stage. So your resume. All resumes need to have the following as a must-have. Number one is a profile statement. So a profile statement is about 4 to 5 sentences that outlines who you are. A profile statement is different than an objective statement because an objective statement just tells the profile statement, highlights you, a little bit about your experience and what you bring to the table if you are hired for this position. Next, you need to make sure you have your roles with the company title, geographical region, and timeline. And you want to make sure that you are starting with the most current information and jobs, and then going into descending experience on your resume. For every role, you want to have 4 to 5 bullets on key job responsibilities. Anything longer than that, it is too long and you're not getting to the key importance of the tasks you've done. Of course, you want to have your education and certifications on your resume as well, your technology skills, which depend on the job. So if there's anything that you do that's special or specific to your career, you want to make sure that is highlighted. You want to also have a couple of accomplishments highlighting what you've done in your previous roles, your contact information, and your social media links as well. So on average, recruiters spend 6 seconds reviewing a resume before deciding if it's a fit for the roles they are looking to hire for. So it is so important that your resume captures the attention of the hiring managers and the recruiters so that you show and highlight your experience and how it matches the job. So for your resume to be effective, you need to highlight and demonstrate your expertise. You need to show your experience progression, and your resume needs to be properly formatted so that it's easy to read and easy to understand your background, experience, and your skill set. A good test to know if your resume meets those 3 things is you share your resume with someone, ask them to review it on your behalf, and ask them what they think within the first 10 seconds of looking at your resume. From there, you'll know if your resume outlines correctly exactly what you wanted to highlight for the jobs you are looking to get hired for. Words are power. Remember, your resume is the very first impression anybody has of you before they even get to meet you and speak with you on your phone. So it is so important that your resume demonstrates the skills and experience within the functionality of your role and the companies that you've worked for. And it's so important that you are specific. So for example, if you're an accountant and your main responsibility is accounts payable and receivable, you need to demonstrate those skills and expertise that you bring to the role. So instead of saying managing AP and AR process, instead say manager of AP and AR for 1,000+ employee company, resulting in over 2.5 million in monthly transactions. That clear definition of how big the company is, how large these transactions are, your role, you're a manager for the accounts payable and accounts receivable department. That is massive information and tells me so much more about your capabilities than just saying manage AR AP process. So making sure that you are specific and you use metrics and numbers wherever possible on your resume is going to be very key in telling your career story. And again, remember, this is the first impression someone has of you, so you want to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward. Okay, so getting to the interviews and how to prep. So the interview process is in place for not only the employer to know who you are and for them to learn more about you, but for you to learn more about the employer and the company as well. So for the employer, they want to understand your skills, your qualifications, your experience, what the work you will do based on your interests, what motivates you, what's your goals and ambitions. And if you're going to be a cultural fit and work well within the team and align with management and the company's values. That's really what they look for. For on your side, as the employee or potential employee, you want to make sure that your experience is a good fit for the role that they're hiring. Is this going to align with your previous experience? And is it going to add value to yourself and your career as you continue to grow? Does it align with your interests and goals? And is the company culture going to support you and be a good fit for you in the long run? So how to prep for the interview. First and foremost, you need to do research on the company. You want to review their website, find articles, press releases, social media, anything that you can find about them so that you get to understand a little bit more of who they are as a company. But most importantly, you can use this as speaking points during your interview. So you could say, oh, I just saw your press release on you building a new building, you're moving office locations, or you're releasing a new product or a new service. Is the team excited? How is that looking? When you show that you've done experience on this, the employer will be very impressed and will want to continue to want to work with you because they see that you have a vested interest in the organization. Number 2, truly understand what they are asking for. Don't just read the job description, but look to understand why the role exists. Are they replacing someone? Is this a new project, a new client? How did this role become available? Understanding the true meaning behind the role is going to bring so much clarity to you so that you make sure that this is the right fit and also that you're delivering on what they are requiring for the position. Number 3, be confident in your career story. Have your tell me about yourself answered down pat. It's also known as your elevator pitch. So talk to them a little bit about your educational background, your schooling, maybe 1 or 2 key accomplishments, and what you were looking for long-term in your career. And then number 4, align your answers to previous experiences. What do you do when you are faced with a challenge is often a question that we see within many of our interviews. So use examples from your work. When I worked at Facebook, or when I worked at Amazon, or where I worked at X company, this is what I did when I was faced with a challenge. Because remember, this employer doesn't know you yet. They're trying to understand how you work, how you think, how you problem solve. So when you're able to use examples of your previous work experience, it brings them into your world to understand how you would navigate the challenges that you might experience at the new company. So stage one, the phone interview. The purpose of the phone interview is to really start to weed out candidates that aren't a fit for the position. It is usually done by a recruiter, and it's usually just done by one person. It's not usually done by a group setting. It could be more formal or it could be more informal because again, it's kind of like a phone screen. So, basic questions about your personal life, what are you looking for, salary, can you travel, hours of availability. They may also ask you salary expectations as well. So it's very entry level types of questions to understand a little bit more of who you are, to see if you are on the right track to be moving forward. So you want to make sure in these meetings you are successful. So you want to be focused, no distractions, and take it just as seriously as you would a phone interview. Again, do your research on the company, listen and don't dominate the conversation, slow down and take your time, don't rush, make sure that they clearly understand your experience and you clearly understand the questions. Be ready for common questions that they will be asking you and make sure you send a thank you email. Stage two, the video interview. So now with COVID and us all working from home, a lot, if not all interviews are now done on video. So how do we make sure that we maximize this time? So the purpose of the video interview, again, is to see if you're capable for your role and the skill set. So they see, they've done the phone screen, they know that you have the skills and the capabilities. Now let's go a little bit deeper into your role and what you've done, and if the skill set is really going to fit the needs of the position. So how to be successful in these? Make sure, because you're on a computer, that you are in a well-lit room that's private and free from any interruptions. Ensure that your internet connection is stable. Check that your computer audio is working and that there is no issues. And also the same thing with your webcam. Close unnecessary web browsers and tabs and any applications. So if you have to share your screen, nothing is seen on your background. You want to make sure that you dress professionally and you avoid super bright colors. And you want to make sure that you have a pen and a notepad near you along with your resume. And because we're not in person, it's so important that we're very vivid with our body language. So make sure that when you're listening, you are nodding and smiling to show that you are engaged. All right, so next we have the panel interview. Now again, it can be in video or in person. And so the panel interview, the purpose of that is for a group of people to really get to understand and get to know you quickly, and also to see how you handle stress. Because you are going to be meeting more than one person, it might be a bit of an intimidating situation. So they want to see how you can navigate that discussion. So to be successful in a video or in-person panel interview, you want to find out who is going to be on that panel. Do your research, go on LinkedIn, search up their names, find a little bit more about them. And if you can find personal points, bring those up so that, again, you could start to build rapport and build trust with them. Practice body language and eye contact. If someone's speaking to you, make sure you're acknowledging them and looking at the screen. And ask lots of questions. As the interviews progress, you will need to be more present and more vocal. So from when you go from phone screen to first interview to panel interview, they are requiring you to speak more and more because they want to see how you are going to interact with the team and how you're going to do the job. So make sure you have your questions ready and make sure that you become ready to speak boldly and confidently about your experience. And then stage 4, managing the offer stage. So with offers, they more than likely will call you and give you that information over the phone. When they call you, the first thing you want to do is say thank you. Thank them for the opportunity and thank them for their time. Once you hear the overview of the offer, ask them to send it in writing, because unless the offer is in writing, it is not official. The phone call is not the time also to negotiate. You should make sure you have everything in writing first, that you've reviewed it, and then identify where you want to negotiate in the agreement. Also, do not feel like you need to rush in providing an answer. Ensuring that you review the paperwork, speaking with your spouse or partner, and sleeping on the decision is going to be so key to making sure that this is the right move for you. So you've decided you want to negotiate. So salary is not the only thing you can negotiate. You can negotiate, of course, your salary, your benefit package, vacation package, 401k or RSP matching, and your bonuses. So when negotiating, you always want to make sure that you are very clear on what you're looking for. So you want to say, thank you so much for the offer. Everything looks great. Just wanted to inquire if there's any flexibility on X, as I was looking for Y in the position. So make your ask and request very clear. If you get a counter offer from your current employer, remember, make a list of all the reasons you are leaving, because those reasons do not change when you have more money from the same company. So key takeaways: make sure your resume is in the best shape possible. No matter what stage of the interview process, prepare, prepare, and prepare. Research the companies you are interviewing with. You are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And take your time when reviewing an offer to ensure it is right for you. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, everybody. Again, my name is Alicia M. Campbell. I can be reached on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can also send me an email as well should you wish to remain in contact. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alicia. It's interesting that Alicia makes reference to resumes, because I, for one, came into Canada in 2018 as a graduate student at Queen's University. And being a co-op program, I was required to look for co-op roles. And using my Nigerian resume, it was impossible. Like, I wasn't even getting callbacks.
Right? You get the impression that, what a distinguished gentleman. He runs their, you know who runs the law firm, or who did for a time, is the
All right. Sorry about that. So I had to work with a career coach in my university who helped me refresh my resume. And I got a co-op role and eventually a full-time at RBC, where I was hired amongst the 25 to 30 applicants out of like thousands of them. So I understand the importance of working with a career coach and having them work on your resumes. Unfortunately, we have some attendees here who had sent in their resumes earlier, and after our sessions, they will move into breakout rooms where our career coaches, Alicia, Gabriella, and Sean, will be giving them feedback on their resumes. So thank you so much, Alicia. Our next speaker is Sean. Sean has an interesting profile. He is currently a CFA and CPA holder. He's worked at Scotiabank, as well as a fintech startup. But now Sean is a full-time entrepreneur. He's the founder of a career accelerator program called 36 Paths. 36 Paths basically helps immigrants, international students, and newcomers to Canada to land that fantastic entry role job in finance. It would interest you to know also that Sean has helped over 1,000 recent graduates land that great job. So it would be good for you to pay attention to this session if you would like to transit to the finance industry. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Yeah, I'm just very delighted to be here and share sort of my insights and experience, especially in terms of kind of getting into the financial service industry in Canada, which is in an area I specialize in. So yeah.
Thank you, Sean. So your presentation, Sean?
Yeah, so today I think I just want to talk about primarily in terms of like the networking aspect. I think a lot of people get confused about how to network, because it's very I guess it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people, right? Because it's not something that you're used to. And to me, I came from China actually 7 years ago. And networking wasn't the thing back in my home country, where I had to kind of learn from scratch and made a ton of mistakes in the process. And what I learned most about it is that if you are someone who is new to the country, having a valuable professional network is going to be so important. And specifically in the financial services industry, I mean, having relevant education experience is a starting point, but at the same time, knowing, you know, the team and the company and an area and the context within those areas is going to be so important. But how do you get started, right? So I think if you think about networking, you have to be a little bit creative in terms of the source of your contact list. Could be, you know, you might have some friends or family who have already been in Canada, who are currently working in the target industry or target companies that you are interested in. And then, you know, you can leverage that. But, you know, perhaps you just recently graduated from, you know, universities of Toronto or Ryerson University. Then you have your alumni network you can tap into. Specifically, if you think about it, if you reach out to someone who's your alumni, and that person will be more likely to, you know, get back to you, and kind of, it's easier for you to kind of establish a connection, right? So if you graduate from a Canadian university, definitely leverage that. And I'll give you some, give you guys some sort of my story. You know, when I was starting out with networking and trying to develop my contacts here in Canada, I primarily kind of focused on my U of T alumni network because I didn't have friends or family here in Canada. So I kind of established my professional work network by just reaching out to U of T alumni who graduated from my program, you know, a few years ahead of me. And the process of networking is not necessarily going to, you know, going on LinkedIn or, you know, cold email people and just asking for their, you know, referrals, asking for job interviews. I think a lot of times people have that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to do networking and my purpose is getting a job, and that's not wrong. But when you think about it, you have to be patient, right? You cannot be desperate in the process because you don't have a pre-existing relationship yet, right? So you need to develop that relationship first by really getting to know the other person, right? So you wanted to develop sort of a professional friendship, right? Let's say, you know, John Smith worked at TD Securities and you know, in the investment banking department, and you wanted to, and that's an area you wanted to work in, right? So you don't just go on LinkedIn and be like, hey, John, I graduated from U of T as well. I noticed that you graduated 3 years ago. Love to, you know, I wanted to, you know, get a job in investment banking at TD, right? You don't go like that. You wanted to kind of soften it and kind of put the spotlight on the other person, just trying to learn as much as you can about the other person's experience and background, and show your real interest in that person. And that has to be genuine, right? You wanted to really getting to know that person and trying to develop that relationship. And hopefully, you know, someone will accept your, you know, LinkedIn invitation request, and then you can go on and provide and kind of initiate the call and kind of develop a relationship from there, right? So, and during the process, trust me, you're gonna get rejected many times, and a lot of people will going to ignore you, and that's totally normal, right? People are busy, and a lot of times, you know, your outreach message doesn't get read at a particularly good day on the receivers, and so, you know, just don't take it too personally, and trust that in terms of networking is always a number game where you want to make sure that you're optimizing your overall, you know, outreach message and how you kind of carry yourself and who do you reach out to. But at the end of the day, you know, it is really a number game. So you wanted to focus on those that are willing to help you, right? And for those that are, you know, despite multiple follow-ups, perhaps still didn't want to establish a connection or develop that relationship further, then that's totally okay. Just move on. And for those that are willing to, you know, invest their time in you to get to know you a bit and trying to help you, show your appreciation and ask relevant questions, right? So I think if you were able to get on a call with someone who is, you know, let's say experienced finance professional, then you wanted to make sure that you do your homework, you research everything about that person, you really come up with a list of questions that are unique in a sense that you don't want to just ask yes or no question. You want to ask open-ended questions. You want to ask questions that give you insights about whether you wanted to work for the specific company and a team. don't ask questions that are too hard for them to answer. For example, like one of the during a networking session, a lot of times people will ask questions like, what's your company culture like? It's really hard. It's very general for them to answer. Instead, you can ask, hey, what's your favorite part about working at TD Securities? Tell me more about that, right? Or, what was the most interesting project that you have recently delivered, right? Instead of just like, tell me more about, what is your day-to-day look like, right? That's too general for someone to provide valuable insights. So really think about how you can ask specific questions that are not something you can easily Google online or find the answers online, right? Something that only the other person that you're talking to can provide a perspective. And keep your first meeting short. I think, anywhere between, 15 to 30 minutes, no longer than 30 minutes when you ask for the initial meeting. I think that would be a good timeline to shoot for, and, follow up. And I think what really takes a relationship to the next level is what's going to happen after the meeting is finished, right? How do you maintain that relationship? How do you develop that to the next level? I think a lot of times an easy one that people often ignore is that, to send holiday wishes. Like, if it's, Christmas or Thanksgiving, make sure you send a note. It could be a quick email, a quick text message, right? Or LinkedIn message or whatever. Make sure that you express your gratitude. And that's something I noticed on both ends of the floor when I was a job seeker, as well as when I was someone who's being networked with, that most people are not doing. 99.9% not doing it because they're only focused on maximizing their one agenda in terms of getting a job. But you have to really step back a little bit and really focus on long-term view in terms of developing your professional network. And for those that do that, really set themselves apart from the rest of the candidates when it comes to networking. So that's kind of my high-level overview in terms of how you go about networking, especially in the financial services industry. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have a bit more time in the Q&A and we can talk through more about the questions and go from there. Sounds good?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. A few things from what Sean has said. I have found personally that it's important to leverage your alumni network. So those who probably went to your graduated from your program or went to the same university, that actually really helps in landing softly. Also, asking specific questions, not like to Sean's point, instead of saying, give me an example of how a typical day goes, you can be like, okay, tell me about your job. I read this on LinkedIn, or I have been speaking to a few people, and here's what. So it shows that you're paying attention to the role. You're really interested in the role. So thank you so much, Sean. And hopefully we'll address some in-depth, some more questions during the panelist discussion. Our next speaker is a native of Romania. Interestingly, also, she was recognized in 2018 as one of the top 25 immigrants in Canada. She currently works as an employee consultant at the Mohawk College, and her name is Gabriela. Gabriela is very, very passionate about building communities as a newcomer or an immigrant. And one thing that really attracted me to Gabriela was Gabriela believes in giving immigrants and newcomers a voice, to initiate change and not to feel uncomfortable because they're in a new territory. So over to you, Gabriela. It's a pleasure to have you on the workshop today. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be invited to this event. My topic, as I'm sure all of you already read on the agenda, it's career mapping and career navigation. It is a really, really very complex topic. And sometimes, in a one-to-one appointment, you need more than 1 hour to cover this. I have for today 10 minutes. This is why I will do just a quick review of highlighting the most stringent issues we are facing right now. And everything will be related to Canada and the Canadian labor market. But anyone anyone that need more help, please feel free to get in touch with me after the session. I'm sure the organizer will share the information, our personal information, email address. I'm not working in a private business. I'm working in a public business, and my job, luckily enough, is to help newcomers. And my passion, combining with my passion to help them succeed in the labor market. Therefore, no obligation in any way. Just feel free to get in touch with me after the session. Talking about any stage, forget about the age right now, just talk about the stage. If we look back to this year, 2020, in 3 months from February to April in Canada, we lost more than 3 million jobs in 3 months. And now just 3/4 have recovered by September from these jobs we lost. Some industries, how you are all aware, were hit harder: accommodation, food services, manufacturing, wholesales, retail, and some real estate sectors. No one did expect that, and no one predicted such a shift into the labor market. And therefore, Canadian economy will rely on workers gaining new skills or improving existing one. In October, like just a month ago, growth stalled in some areas, some industries, like transportation, warehousing, construction, and in some industries, like wholesale, professional, scientific, and technical services, and some educational services, growth surpassed. It is difficult now to establish the long-term consequences of this pandemic. On the demand for products and services in severely affected industries, supporting workers during this transition will protect one of the key assets of the company and obvious of Canada, which is our human capital. Until 2020, when we were talking about career mapping as a career consultant, we used to talk about career ladder. I'm sure that all you are aware about this concept. Is that process in an organization or an industry that allow employees or career seekers to advance their career to a higher level of salary or responsibilities or sometimes authority. Now we are completely shifting this. We forgot about the ladder and we are looking to a different approach, a hop on and off approach, a new skill that may be especially important during this unprecedented job market we are facing right now. Now, more than ever, we need to answer two major questions. How many soft skills and transferable skills I can list? If someone will give me like two empty blank piece of paper and they ask me, okay, I want you to list 10 soft skills and 10 transferable skills when you are applying for this job. And I want you to be aware that a lot of interview processes have changed. Like it's really hard. And I was reading to your questions and during the chat, you are looking for a cookie cutter approach. The cookie cutter approach doesn't work, especially right now. It's completely different approach in the hiring. This will serve in the next career search. This is the first step. This is the most important and the first step. The second one is your career planning, because career planning, when you talk about career planning, it's a huge difference in what you like on doing and what you are able to do. First, you need to understand where does your interest lie and do you possess the ability to pursue that career. Like, I'm scared of heights. I like the fact that I can travel, I have a good salary, I have good benefits, I might be able to work for a company that, you know, it's giving me a lot of, a big kind of package, but am I able to do the job? When you figure out what you want to be when you grow up, you can go to the next step. And the next step in the career process, it's starting acquiring information about the post-secondary education. Because as a newcomer, sometimes you come of this part where you are like, do I have to go back to school? What do I need to work in this field? And the big mistake that the majority of the newcomers are doing is just jumping in that boat and saying, I have to go back to school. But maybe your education is recognized in Canada and you don't have to do that. You might need just to go and apply for a certification. You have to, this is why it's important to see what are the job requirements in terms of education. This is acquiring information about the post-secondary. Don't get me wrong, it's not about going back to school, okay? You have to see, you have to check if you need the certification. You have to look if the job is regulated in Canada, because the Canadian labor market could be completely different from your home country. Do you have to go back to school just to get a certification, or go in the path or the regulatory to work with the regulatory body, or you just learn that on the job training? You don't have to go back to school. You have to do this. It's your job to do that. The third one, in case you need education or certification, you have to take in consideration any financial needs and start obtaining financial information. If you need money to pay for that tuition, maybe you wanted to explore help. You wanted to explore programs that will help you to go back to school. They are grants, they are fundings, they are, again, I want you to make a difference between the word grant and loan, okay? I'm giving you an example. OSAP, it's a loan. You borrow the money from the government as an education, for the education purpose, but you have to give back that money in a time frame with a specific setup. Which another way to go back to this education, either certification or a regulatory body process, you can access grants. Grants exist for newcomers, as well for Canadian citizens, but you have to access, you have to find that information. Don't just go at the university and say, I wanted to apply, or the college, because you might end up paying from your own pocket. And after you start the school or the process, you figure out in your classmates did apply to grants, not to the loan, and unfortunately, you cannot go back to apply to that. Quoting Coursera, I took all this information from their webpage. Online learning and training, obvious, was on the rise during the pandemic, but looks different for those in employment and those who are unemployed. There has been 4 times increase in number of individuals seeking out opportunities for learning online to their own initiative, a 5 times increase in employer provision of online learning opportunities to their workers, and the 9 times enrollment increase for learners accessing online through the government programs. Like 9%, they are actually using this support, because this is why, in terms of, like a turmoil like is happening right now, or whenever just an industry collapse, the government will chip in and put some additional support, which actually happens in Canada right now. Those in employment are placing larger emphasis on personal development courses. Like, they are not really specific. The ones who are working are not specific in terms of what type of course I want to take online, which have seen 88% grow among general population. For the ones who are unemployed, have placed greater emphasis on learning digital skills, because I'm sure all you are aware, this is where the shift is going. Data analysis, computer science, IT, information technology, these are the type of courses people who are unemployed are focusing right now on. I wanted you to know, as a newcomer myself, that help exists. With a planning process, you need to look for this help. Networking, it is a word that you need to explore in maximum. And already my predecessor, the 2-1, spoke about this word networking. Now I'm talking networking in terms of career search. Existing support in the market, it's here. You have everything you need for your career planning, but you need to find the support that fits your need. There are different programs, it's different support, depends what type of jobs, depends what type of industry you are looking for. You have to look for your niche. Many people consider that searching online is the easiest way to find that information. Just going in Google and search the word grants to go back to school, you'll find the information. It's really hard to find that information. Internet and the search button were just to help you finding the location you have to go, location like online, let's say, to go and meet with some career specialist or career consultant. Is not giving you the answer to your question. To be honest with you, for me, sometimes after almost 18 years experience in specific in this field in Canada, sometimes it's really hard to have the answer at a glance. I have sometimes to have a look. I know where to look exactly, but I might not have the answer. You might ask yourself, why do I have to go and make the appointment or meet someone or stuff like that? And I'm giving you 3 reasons. The first one, going out of your comfort zone, increase motivation and continue learning and find more information. When we are in a, let's say in a normal time, always we are saying going out of your pajamas will make a difference. Right now, yes, you do have to go out of your pajamas, maybe sometimes just half, but still you have to kind of refresh yourself when you are going in Zoom to meet someone. The relationship between mental health, looking for work, and our personal lives is exceptionally complex. It's not as easy you might think. Number 2, the counselor, career counselor, employment specialist, whatever title they have, will help you integrate the labor market information into your career decision-making process, which is a really important part. Number 3, will help you to equalize opportunities because you can see both sides of the coin. It's not just how you think or what you think about that. It's as well what information about labor market that person has. What you know and what that person in front of you know will make kind of a whole. In a time of change, there are many benefits in mentorship, in guidance and support. And you have to access that. It's your right and you have to get used to this part. Any career change requires sustained commitment. If you are considering a transition, you have to be willing to take action. You need to invest time. How I like to say usually, looking for a job, it's a full-time job. Don't treat the job search as a part-time job because you'll get part-time results. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, it is a combination between effort and money, and even make sacrifices in order to see it through. In a report published by the World Economic Forum, a really recent one, where they explore the rise of machines and automation into the workforce, the report suggests that automation will eliminate 85 million jobs by 2025. And a lot of people get scared of that. They are thinking, oh my God, 85 million jobs will disappear. But the good news is, however, exactly the same World Economic Forum shows that the report that adding such machinery to the workforce, we actually bring an addition of 12 million jobs, expecting a total of 97 million new jobs to be created. But once again, we are talking about reskilling, upskilling. These will be the 2 words that will be really, really popular for the workforce to be equipped for the future of work. In conclusion, if you have a look to the policymaker and the actions they take right now during this time, you notice that they want to help the job seekers. This is why more and more programs are in place. And therefore, they consider how they can improve technologically and mental health support being offered to this training support. In order to remain employable, you need to create your own plan for continuous professional development. And when you are talking about jobs, job titles, and making plans in terms of professional development, I copy-paste effectively a list, which I will read for you right now, with top 15 skills for 2025. And I want you to listen really, really focusing on these skills, because these skills will be completely different for what you did expect. Analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and learning strategies, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creative originality and initiative, leadership and social influence, technology use, monitoring and control, technology design and programming, resilience, stress tolerance and flexibility, reasoning, problem solving and ideation, emotional intelligence, troubleshooting and user experience, service orientation, system analyst and evaluation, and persuasion and negotiation. All this information was gathered from Future of Jobs Survey 2020 World Economic Forum. And yes, I will send this list to the organizer. Thank you so much. And again, any questions you have, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll be more than welcome to have a chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. That was a lot. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. For those of you who are just joining us, please feel free to send in your questions using the chat box as we move to the panelist discussion, so I could read your questions and address it to whoever would answer them. So we're now moving to the panelist discussion. And for this discussion, we have a very special guest with us. She is the president of the Canadian Association for Urban Financial Professionals, COFPE, and is currently a payments expert at the People's Group. Please join me as we welcome Meryl Africa. Welcome, Meryl. It's a pleasure to have you on our panel today. So for this session, I will be asking you the very first question. So Meryl, this goes to you. What are the hardest obstacles that newcomers face in relation to job applications?
What I want to say is newcomers now have a better situation than a lot of us had many years ago. So I'm from South Africa. I came to Canada about 11 years ago, and we weren't seeing the type of support that you're seeing now from companies where they're holding open houses, they're working with agencies such as Access Employment or TRIAC. So to give a little bit of hope, even in dark times, I will say you are in a much better situation than many immigrants who were, especially if you were like me and never went to school in Canada and you came here as a fresh graduate from back home. I would say the biggest thing is if you're in Toronto, you are in the most competitive market. So be mindful of that. It is a tough market even for Canadians or for permanent residents. And I think the prior panelists covered it well in that you need to understand how to structure your resume. A CV is very different to how North American resumes are. You need to understand the certifications that you require. If your certifications from back home need to be updated or changed to meet the Canadian certifications. And also understanding a lot of us come from cultures that are not good at networking. They don't teach us to be proactive. And that is something that's common in North America. So reaching out, as Sean mentioned, on LinkedIn or wherever, doing those types of things, but also being mindful of how you do it. I receive a ton of messages from people all the time. And, they're not very thoughtful. They're just, okay, I'm going to ask this generic question, or I'll send a question like, oh, I want to learn more about COFPE. And I think if you send an executive an email like, I want to learn more about your role on capital markets or whatever, they're not going to respond to you because you need to have done the research. You need to understand and be able to articulate why it is that you want to get into that particular role or that market or that company, because when you go into your interview, you're going to have to articulate those things. So making sure that you have well thought out questions is the thing, and making sure that you are applying for a ton of roles. I personally believe, yes, networking helps, but when you don't have an alumni, you don't have a base, you don't belong to a professional community, in the beginning, I had to have several different resumes for several different types of jobs I wanted. So if I wanted something in finance, my resume was structured a little bit different to what I would do for a generic kind of management type of role. And slight tweaks. It's not lying or changing your resume, it's slight tweaks, but understanding that you can't have the same generic resume all the time for every single job. So I think it's just the biggest challenge is understanding the market that you're in, and really knowing how to navigate that. And you can learn that through events like today, which is really wonderful. And listening to David's podcast, we chats to a lot of folks who've navigated these waters, but also attending events by organizations like COFB. I see Jeffrey's in the chat. If you're somebody who is in project management or aspire to be in project management, Jeffrey's the president of PMI Toronto. That's you want to connect with people like that just to help you to understand how you can get into the industry as a newcomer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meryl. I think you highlighted something that was very important. Like the questions you would ask, say, a mid-level manager shouldn't be the same questions you ask like the executive of an organization. Like, tell me about the organization. You should have done your research on what the organization does. So thank you so much, Meryl. The next question goes to you, Alicia. The question says, is a placement agency the best way to gather Canadian experience and get a full-time job?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's one of the many ways that you can kind of kickstart or kind of get some good traction on your job search. I know when I graduated from school, I got my first job from a placement agency. They have full-time roles, part-time roles, contract positions. And if the agency is big enough, they may have roles in other areas of the country within Canada. So I would say going to an agency, getting a recruiter to assist in your job search can be absolutely great, and getting your foot in the door, because they have a lot of those already contacts and kind of relationships kind of established with their clients, and they know what their clients are looking for. So it can make the process a lot easier. But having said that, don't make that your one-stop shop. They are a tool in your toolbox. Continue to also apply for your own roles and network, and continue to use all tips and insights shared on today's call.
Okay, awesome. Alicia, in line with that, what would you say are good sources to find examples of interview questions in preparing for like a job interview?
Oh, that's a great one. I would say, honestly, Google is a great resource. There are tons of websites that have not only the questions, but sample answers that would, sound really good. And of course, by no means do you want to memorize these answers, but they just help to, again, get ideas flowing, get the, thoughts going of how you would answer it. And you don't feel like, that you're stuck and you have to make up something, but it kind of just gives you a little bit of a foundation. But you want to make sure that your answers are your own, they're authentic to who you are, and that that you're able to back them up. So again, with any with any question that's asked, going back and referring to an example of what you did in your previous experience or volunteer or in your school, because that's going to make the example tangible and real and more authentic to your background.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sean, the next question goes to you. How do I switch to a career in IT from finance or insurance, and vice versa? So the person asking this question is probably in finance and wants to switch careers to technology, but I think it's also applicable to someone who wants to do vice versa if the person is in IT and wants to go to finance.
Right. Yeah. So my perspective is, if you're already in finance, insurance, and you want to transition to, more kind of technology focused like IT, data analyst, or, business analyst, or perhaps even, software engineer or data scientist, I think about what is the, kind of the path you want to pursue within IT and why, right? Ask yourself questions like, why do I want to jump into, the more kind of focus on the technology side of things, and kind of honestly assess yourself in terms of, is that something you were interested? Do you have the skills that you need to develop, and talk to people, right? Talk to people who have made that transition from finance or insurance to kind of more technology focused type of roles. And let's say if you're already with, large bank, let's say a BMO or RBC, and let's say you're currently working within, the finance function of the bank, then, there are plenty of opportunities that you can pursue within the same organization on IT side, right? So if you did a really good job on your current role and you kind of raise your hand up, you say, hey, you know, I am really interested in exploring on the, you know, technology side of things, and start networking within and without too, right? Outside of your organization, if you're with one of those banks, and having those conversations. It goes back to what I was talking about in terms of networking, right? Establishing professional connections with those who have already done what you're trying to do, right? So learn from those who have done, you know, what you're aspiring to do. I think is the best way to gain real insights in terms of what needs to happen in order to get there, right? So, you know, I always use that example where, you know, if you wanted to learn how to play basketball, you want to learn from Michael Jordan or LeBron James. You don't want to learn from, you know, I don't know, a soccer player or whatever, right? So it's the same thing here. You wanted to, you know, find folks that are a few years ahead of you in terms of, you know, background experience, who have already made that transition, and kind of learn from them, and vice versa. Again, you know, if you're currently IT, you want to get into, you know, finance, business, or insurance, ask yourself why. Why do you want to make that transition? Is it because, you know, you don't enjoy coding, or you don't enjoy data analysis as much? Is it because the capital markets really fascinate you? Or, you know, ask yourself honest question and assess that, and making sure that that is what you wanted to the transition you want to move, then figure out the pieces and how, right? Always ask why first, and then go for the how. Perhaps it's getting your CFA, perhaps it's pursuing a Master of Finance, but don't make any assumptions. Don't just jump into the solution right away. Because in my opinion, I'm a CFA and a CPA, and I have my Master of Accounting, but those are just means to an end, right? They're not the end goal, right? The end goal is to obviously continue to progress in your career, whatever that be, right? So that will be kind of my perspective. So and also, if you're already in finance and insurance, make sure that you can apply roles that leverage your existing domain knowledge and experience, right? So, you know, let's say you're in finance, insurance, you want to get into IT, then perhaps, focus on roles that are, IT roles that are within the finance insurance sector, or give you a slightly, I guess, a bit more competitive advantage, because you already know, the finance insurance industry better than those who haven't worked there, right? And vice versa. So that would be kind of my perspective there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. I think one of the key points there to highlight is networking never stops, right?
100%.
When you need to connect with someone to get into the company, and then when you get in, you don't talk to anyone. You need to keep building your network. So that's really important.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sean. Gabriella, the next question goes to you. I am a PR holder and I'm currently working in Saudi Arabia. I plan to move to Canada permanently in February. So is it possible for me to get a job before arriving, or I have to be there to get one?
It's a really complex question. Again, we need more questions to ask to answer this. Depends what's your status. This is the first and the most important part in addressing this question, because if you are coming in Canada as a PR, permanent residence, is different than if you are planning to come in Canada as a visitor, or depends on your status, depends if you are eligible to work in Canada, and if you have a working visa, that it's again a different question. Again, the answer could be really, really complex. I need more time than already you can offer to me during this panel discussion. My suggestion is, again, either to contact me or speak with someone who will help you, because if your status is, if you are not, how it's, the definition is, if we don't know if you stay or leave, okay, like if your status is uncertain in terms of employment, you might not be eligible to get a job. But if you have all the required documents to work in Canada, now we are not talking qualification, we talk about required documents to work in Canada, yes, you can land a job before you are coming, because again, we are living in a different time, and a lot of screening process is by phone, and a lot of interview process, it's online. Therefore, it's a 50-50. It's a yes or a no. Depends on your status.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Gabriela. I'll be sure to let the attendee know to reach out to you personally. Meryl, this question goes to you. What could be the reason for not getting called for interviews, even when my experience and qualifications perfectly match the job description? In addition to that, does having English names give me a better chance in getting a job?
No, I don't believe that you have to have a English name to have a. I think, Canada, we're so used to having new immigrants, and like I said, you're in an environment, even though it's difficult and there's a pandemic and there's not as many jobs, and one of the big things is people are not worried about what your name looks like. If you want to be helpful, if you have a very difficult name to pronounce, you can sort of put whatever your shortened abbreviation is in your title. I will say that nowadays, especially those trying to get into banking, many of the FIs are trying to hold on to their staff. So, usually every year there's a lot of reorg that happens. So instead of letting people go, they're trying to sort of shuffle people around or give internal candidates preferential treatment. So what that means for you as somebody as an outsider, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to get a job, even if you are very well qualified. So I would say, it's a numbers game. It's going to harder these days, coupled with the fact that you're in Toronto, which is, the biggest market for jobs. I would not be discouraged. If you've applied for something and you haven't heard back, you didn't get an interview, you could try to reach out to somebody who works in the industry or a similar job or at the company. Maybe see if you can connect with them and get some advice from them if they're willing to have that virtual coffee with you these days. That's a great way to better understand that. Networking is important, but at the end of the day, you still have to go through the typical HR processes. So just be patient with yourselves. It is really tough out there. Companies are hiring, but they really are being very, very selective of the candidates. And that's really just because there's a lot fewer jobs that are currently available.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Meryl. Alicia, we have 2 more questions and we would round up everyone. Yeah. In terms of upskilling and getting relevant certifications while job hunting, is there a possibility of becoming overqualified, and how do I balance this?
Oh, that's a great question. I wouldn't worry about being overqualified. I think especially in the time like we are in now, there's a ton of free courses, there's a ton of great resources available, and just opportunities to upskill, train, and re-educate yourself in a new area. So don't worry about over-educating yourself and putting yourself out of the running for an opportunity. What I would say though is if you do have a lot of certifications or education, make sure the ones that are relevant to the job you're applying for are on the resume. If say you have 10 certifications in different areas, the ones that maybe aren't as applicable, I wouldn't include on the resume, but the ones that are, you want to make sure that they're front and center. So that will help balance out between your certifications and the experience that you have or looking to attain.
Okay, awesome. So there's a question directed at me. Okay. I noticed you have a lot of volunteer experiences. How does one get involved in Canada? So I am very passionate about disadvantaged children. So back home in Nigeria, I do a lot of volunteer work and own a not-for-profit focused on disadvantaged children. So coming to Canada, I actively searched for volunteer opportunities, and I still do. I leverage like connections. I tell everyone I meet, okay, yes, I'm passionate about children. So if you know any like how one can volunteer. Hi, Gabriela, do you have something to say?
Volunteering in Canada, I think, is the easiest way.
Exactly.
Easiest thing to do. Okay.
Exactly. So it could be LinkedIn. I work at RBC. We have a platform that lists out various opportunities. I use Google, and Google shares like Charity Village and different organizations that actually have volunteer opportunities. So you just need to identify your area of focus or the cause that is really dear to you, and then follow up. There's several opportunities and then it's a festive season as well. So you could also volunteer hours. It could be remote with the coronavirus pandemic right now. So thank you so much. Okay. There's one more question here for you, Alicia. I will quickly run through it, and then In regards to working with recruiting agencies, how would you advise a candidate to answer the questions about wanting to move from a full-time role to a contract? Pandemic right now. How would you advise an applicant to respond to such questions? I feel like recruiters and agencies don't buy whatever reason you give them, and almost discourage me from doing so.
Okay, so if you're full-time and you want to go into contract, I would just be honest and let them know, like, maybe there's a situation that's changed where full-time work isn't workable for you and your schedule and your family at this time. Let them know that you're looking for more flexibility, and given other circumstances that your full-time role doesn't allow you to have at this point in time, and really just be honest. I mean, if you're not getting the support that you need from your recruiter, I would find a new recruiter, either at a different agency or within the same agency. But if you're not getting the support you need to help you in your job search, I would find an individual and a recruiter that would be able to help you. So there's tons of people, life changes. We're in a very life-changing situation. So moving from full-time to part-time work to take care of family, to be home with the kids for school, that all makes sense. So if someone is using that as a blocker to work and support you, I would find somebody else.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, especially our panelists and our attendees today, for joining us on a Saturday morning to learn and to add value to each and every one of us. Like I mentioned earlier, some of you were kind enough to send your resumes, and we would advise that you please wait back so we can share you into your breakout rooms, and then the career coaches can give you their feedback on your resumes. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Please share your thoughts and reviews of this workshop on LinkedIn, or send your feedback to info@fresh.hub.com.